David Ellis stood at the threshold of the Zarathon interstellar port, his gaze fixed on the stream of alien delegates, traders, and tourists flowing through the gates. As a xenolinguist, his job was to ensure that language barriers didn't obstruct the smooth operation of the port. Today, however, was about to unfold differently. David, you've got two Varelians waiting at Gate 7. They specifically asked for you. His assistant, Tom, approached with a tablet in hand, displaying the details of the new arrivals. Varelians, here? That's unusual. They rarely travel this far from their sector, David mused, straightening his jacket. Let's not keep them waiting. As they walked briskly towards Gate 7, David's mind raced with what little he knew about the Varelians. Known for their intricate culture and deep-rooted traditions, they were a mystery to most of the galaxy. Reaching the gate, David saw them immediately. The twins, Lyra and Mira, stood side by side, their slender forms cloaked in flowing, iridescent garments. Their eyes, reflecting a tinge of cosmic purple, surveyed their surroundings with a cautious curiosity. Mr. Ellis, I presume? Lyra's voice was melodious, her accent thick but comprehensible. I am Lyra, and this is my sister Mira. We are honored by your presence. David extended a hand, a human gesture he hoped they would understand. The honor is mine. How may I assist you today? Mira stepped forward, her gaze intent. We require your expertise on a matter most sensitive. Our mission here involves cultural exchange without technological interference. We seek to understand and participate, not just observe. Tom, catching David's eye, gave a subtle nod and excused himself, leaving the trio in private. Why choose to forego the translator devices? It's highly unusual, David inquired, leading them towards a quiet corner of the port. Lyra's smile held a hint of mystery. Our people value genuine experiences. We believe true understanding comes from direct interaction, not through machines. David nodded, appreciating the philosophy despite its impracticality in such a diverse galaxy. I'm specialized in these matters, but I must admit, your approach is quite unique. Where do you wish to start? Mira exchanged a look with her sister before responding. We start by learning your language as you learn ours. We wish to communicate as equals. The idea intrigued David, offering a refreshing break from his routine tasks. Very well, we shall start at the beginning. Follow me to my office where we can talk more comfortably and begin our lessons. As they walked, David felt the weight of the task ahead. He was not merely translating words but bridging worlds. The journey promised to be as challenging as it was exciting. The twins listened intently as David explained the basics of human communication, their eyes lighting up with each new piece of information. Understanding each other will take patience and effort from all of us, David concluded as they reached his office, a small but welcoming space filled with books and digital screens. We are prepared, Lyra assured him, her voice steady and confident. Our mission is to embrace human culture as part of our diplomatic expansion. You, Mr. Ellis, are our guide. David settled behind his desk, the twins taking seats across from him. Then let us begin. We have much to learn from each other. As the first words of Varelian slipped from Lyra's lips, David leaned forward, his recorder capturing every nuance. This was more than a job now. It was a journey into the heart of an alien culture, and he was at the helm. David Ellis arranged for a more private setting than his cluttered office for his next meeting with the Varelian twins, Lyra and Mira. The serene environment of the Zarathon Botanical Gardens, filled with flora from across the galaxy, seemed the perfect backdrop for cultural exchange. As they strolled among bioluminescent flowers and towering alien ferns, David introduced another key member of his team, Mark Jensen, a cultural anthropologist. Mark specializes in intercultural relations. He'll help us navigate the subtleties of human-Varelian interactions, David explained as they met near a softly glowing water feature. Pleased to meet you both, Mark greeted, offering a slight bow, mimicking a respectful Varelian greeting he'd studied. David tells me you're here to immerse yourselves in human culture directly. It's a fascinating approach. Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the garden's ambient light. Yes, Mr. Jensen. We hope to understand your species' emotional and social nuances firsthand. Mira, ever the more direct of the two, added. We also extend an invitation to you both. We've secured a residence here on Zerathon where we will host parts of this cultural exchange. We wish for you to join us there tomorrow evening for a traditional Varelian meal. That sounds wonderful, Mark responded, clearly intrigued. It's a rare opportunity to experience Varelian hospitality. David nodded in agreement. We'll be there. It'll give us a better understanding of your customs and how you communicate those in your setting. As they continued through the garden, the conversation turned to logistics and expectations. Lyra and Mira described the kind of data they needed to collect. Observations on human emotional expressions, decision-making processes, and interpersonal dynamics. We hope to observe these in natural settings. How you interact with others, manage conflicts, show affection, Mira explained. David thought for a moment. Perhaps we could arrange for you to see various social settings. Anything from professional environments to leisure activities. Mark chimed in. What about a tour of the city? Seeing a range of social interactions could be beneficial. Plus, it would give you a broader view of human diversity. Lyra was quick to agree. We would appreciate that. Seeing the diversity of your species in different contexts will help us grasp the complexity of human emotions. They spent the rest of the afternoon discussing potential activities and environments that would best showcase human interactions, each suggestion meticulously noted by the twins. As the sun set over the gardens, casting long shadows and painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, David felt a renewed sense of purpose. This assignment was not just about linguistic translation, but about bridging worlds on a profound level. Before we part, David said as they neared the garden's exit, are there any specific areas of human culture or behavior that you're particularly interested in? Mira paused, then responded, we are curious about your concept of art and creativity, how it influences human emotion and social bonds. That's a vast area, but a fascinating one, Mark replied, his mind already racing with ideas. We'll make sure to include visits to galleries, performances, maybe even workshops where you can see art being made. Thank you, Lyra said, her tone sincere. We look forward to learning from these experiences and from you. As they parted ways, with promises to meet the next evening, David and Mark walked back through the quietening gardens, discussing the potential impact of their work not just on diplomatic relations, but on personal growth and understanding. The task was daunting, but the opportunity to truly connect and perhaps even to change some aspect of interstellar relations was exhilarating. David Ellis arrived at the Varelian twins' residence with Mark Jensen in tow, both carrying an air of eager anticipation mixed with professional curiosity. The home was a temporary habitat tailored to mimic Varelian architecture, with smooth, curving walls and soft, ambient lighting that shifted subtly in hue and intensity. Lyra greeted them at the door, her smile warm. Welcome to our home away from home, she said, guiding them into a large, open-plan living area where Mira was arranging what appeared to be food on a low, circular table. Thank you for having us, Mark said, looking around appreciatively. Your place really captures a Varelian vibe. We hope to make it as authentic as possible, Mira replied. It helps us stay connected to our roots while we're so far from Vareli. David glanced at the table, noting the variety of dishes. Some looked somewhat familiar, others completely alien. Everything looks amazing. Is this a typical Varelian meal? Yes, each dish represents different regions of Vareli. We'll explain each as we go along, Lyra explained, inviting them to sit cross-legged around the table. As they began to eat, David used the opportunity to delve into the language lessons. Let's talk about some basic phrases in Varelian. Could you teach us something simple to start? Lyra nodded, her expression turning teacherly. A common greeting is Terashur Lumina, which means peace in your light. It's used similarly to your hello. Mark repeated the phrase tentatively, earning an approving nod from Mira. Terashur Lumina. And how would one respond? The typical reply is Luminashur Terra, light in your peace. Mira demonstrated the lilting intonation. The meal progressed with similar exchanges, the earthy flavors of the food blending with the linguistic lessons. Each new word or phrase was accompanied by a story or a cultural note, making the learning process rich and engaging. After the meal, David proposed a more structured lesson. I brought some materials that might help us. Perhaps we could use these to create a more formal lesson plan. An excellent idea, Lyra agreed. We are keen to learn as much as possible. They moved to a study area where David unfolded his portable data terminal. He displayed a basic linguistic software tailored for language teaching. This program is interactive and can help us track our progress. Mark, intrigued, leaned closer. Maybe we can add some cultural notes to it, like a cross-reference to the stories you've told us tonight? That would be very helpful, Mira responded, clearly pleased with the suggestion. The session extended into the evening, with each twin taking turns to speak phrases in Varelian, then asking David and Mark to repeat them. The software allowed them to record their voices and play them back, which led to a few laughs and some good-natured teasing. As they wrapped up, David reflected on the night's progress. I think we're off to a great start. Your willingness to share not just your language but your culture is going to make this a truly rich experience. Mira smiled, her eyes twinkling in the room's soft light. And your eagerness to learn speaks volumes about human curiosity and openness. As they said their goodbyes, Mark added, "We'll see you tomorrow at the Cultural Center for the art exhibit?" "Yes, we're looking forward to it," Lyra confirmed. Art is another beautiful language we're eager to explore together. Walking back to their transport, David and Mark discussed the evening's lessons. There's so much to learn, and not just about language, David mused. This exchange could really help bridge our worlds. Mark nodded in agreement. Language is just the beginning. I have a feeling we're on the cusp of something much larger. The city lights twinkled in the distance as they made their way home, their minds full of Varelian phrases and the promise of deeper connections yet to come. David Ellis and Mark Jensen met with Lyra and Mira at the local cultural center, a modern building designed to facilitate artistic exhibitions and performances from across the galaxy. Today, the center hosted an eclectic mix of human and alien art, making it the perfect venue for a cultural exchange. As they entered the main gallery, David remarked on the diversity displayed. This place really showcases the breadth of artistic expression found on Earth and beyond. Each piece tells a different story. Mark nodded, pointing to a nearby sculpture. This piece, for instance, is a fusion of human and Zillion techniques. Notice the intricate metalwork, typical of Zillion craft, blended with human abstract forms. Lyra examined the sculpture closely. The integration of styles speaks of collaboration. Is this common in human art? It's becoming more so, Mark explained. Artists are increasingly drawing inspiration from interstellar cultures. Mira, who had been quietly observing a series of paintings, called them over. These pieces here, are they also a blend of cultures? David approached, examining the vivid, swirling colors. Actually, these are purely human, part of the Impressionism movement. They focus more on capturing moments and emotions rather than precise reality. Fascinating, Mira murmured. Varelian art is more literal. We use art to record historical and cultural events accurately. Lyra looked thoughtful. Seeing this, I wonder how blending our styles would look. Could we attempt something similar? That's an excellent idea, David replied, enthusiastic about the prospect. Maybe we could arrange a workshop? You could collaborate with some local artists. Mark chimed in. I know a couple of artists who would be thrilled to collaborate. I'll set something up. The group spent the rest of the morning touring the exhibit, discussing various art forms and their cultural significances. After a light lunch at the center's cafe, Mark received a confirmation on his communicator. Good news, he announced. A workshop is set for tomorrow. 2 local artists, specializing in painting and sculpture, will join us. They're excited about the idea of integrating Varelian elements into their work. Lyra and Mira exchanged a pleased glance. We appreciate this effort, Lyra said. It's a meaningful way to share our culture. The next day, the workshop took place in a spacious studio within the cultural center. The local artists, a painter named Sarah and a sculptor named Ben, were introduced to the twins. Sarah, with a warm smile, presented her ideas. I've been thinking about how to incorporate Varelian aesthetics into my work. Your approach to color and form is intriguing. Ben, more reserved but equally interested, added, I've brought some materials that I think will complement your techniques. It'll be interesting to see how they meld with human sculpture. The session began with each twin describing Varelian art techniques, emphasizing their use of materials and symbolic meanings. David and Mark assisted, translating when necessary and facilitating the exchange of ideas. As hands moved and materials were shaped, the group found themselves deeply engrossed in the creative process. Laughter and light-hearted banter filled the studio, bridging any gaps between the artists as they learned from one another. By the end of the workshop, they had produced several pieces that were a true blend of Earth and Vareli. A painted canvas featured bold Varelian symbols amidst impressionistic human strokes, while a small sculpture combined human abstract forms with Varelian metalwork techniques. "We must display these," Mira suggested, looking proudly at their collective work. "Perhaps in the cultural center?" Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "I'll talk to the center's director. It would be great to have an exhibit showcasing this collaboration." As they cleaned up, David reflected on the day. Today was about more than just art. It was about understanding and appreciating our differences and similarities. Mark agreed. "It's these kinds of exchanges that truly enrich our cultures." Lyra and Mira thanked everyone, their expressions conveying more than words could. As the group parted ways, they felt not just the satisfaction of creation, but the joy of new friendships and deeper cultural connections. After the success of the art workshop, David Ellis and Mark Jensen arranged to spend an evening with the Varelian twins, Lyra and Mira, at a popular local venue known for its live performances. The goal was to immerse the twins in a human social setting, observing and participating in the interactions that unfolded. As they approached the vibrant night spot, the sound of lively music and chatter filled the air. Mark leaned over to the twins, explaining, "This place is known for its eclectic mix of music ranging from jazz to electronic. It's a melting pot of human creativity." Lyra looked intrigued. "We've learned about human music in theory, but experiencing it in this context will be enlightening." Inside, the venue was alive with energy. Groups of people mingled, danced, and enjoyed the night. David guided the group to a reserved table with a clear view of the stage and the bustling crowd. As they settled in, a band started playing a lively jazz number. The rhythm was infectious, and soon, many patrons were on their feet, swaying to the music. Mira watched intently, then turned to David. "Is dancing a common way for humans to bond?" "It's one of many ways," David replied. "Dancing can express joy, celebration, or just be a way to connect with the music and each other." Curious, Mira stood. "Would you show me how?" David smiled, offering his hand. "Of course. Let's give it a try." They moved to the dance floor, David guiding Mira through the basic steps. Nearby, Lyra observed, her eyes following their movements closely. Seeing Lyra's interest, Mark offered his hand. "Would you like to try as well?" With a slight nod, Lyra joined Mark on the dance floor. The twins' initial awkwardness soon gave way to laughter as they began to move more freely with the music. As the set ended and they returned to their table, David asked, "How was that for a first experience?" "It was exhilarating," Mira admitted, her eyes sparkling. "The connection, the music, it's quite powerful." Lyra agreed. "It's a very expressive form of communication. I see why it's cherished." The night continued with more performances, including a local poet who delivered verses that touched on themes of unity and exploration. David used this as a teaching moment. Poetry, like music, can convey deep emotions and ideas. It's another form of art that's highly valued. Mira, reflecting on the poet's words, nodded. "The use of language to evoke emotion is something we value too, though our expressions are different." As the evening wore on, the group discussed various human customs related to music and art, comparing them to Varelian practices. David and Mark took notes on the twins' reactions, gaining insights into their emotional responses and social behaviors. Before they left, Mark suggested, "We should capture these experiences in a shared journal. It could be valuable for both our cultures." Lyra was enthusiastic about the idea. "A joint record of our exchange would be an excellent way to preserve what we've learned and felt here." They agreed to start the journal, documenting their experiences, thoughts, and feelings from their cultural exchange. Walking back to their transport, the cool night air felt refreshing after the warmth of the crowded venue. David looked at the twins, noticing a slight change in their demeanor. A more relaxed posture, smiles more readily coming to their faces. This evening has been about more than just enjoyment, David reflected. It's about understanding each other on a deeper level. Mark nodded, adding, and it's just the beginning. There's so much more to explore and understand. As they said their goodnights, the promise of future exchanges hung in the air, each encounter building stronger bridges between their worlds. The night's experience had deepened their connection, setting the stage for further exploration and mutual understanding. After weeks of cultural immersion and countless shared experiences, the atmosphere between David Ellis, Mark Jensen, and the Varelian twins, Lyra and Mira, had grown increasingly intimate and respectful. Tonight, they were gathered at David's apartment for a quieter, more personal gathering. As they settled around the cozy living room with soft music playing in the background, Mira initiated a deeper conversation. David, Mark, throughout our time together, we have come to appreciate the depth of human emotions and the complexities of your interactions. Lyra continued, and we've noticed that, just as with your art and music, there's a richness to how you connect on a personal level. David, sensing the shift in tone, nodded. Human relationships are indeed complex. They can be as multifaceted as the cultures themselves. Mark added, each relationship, whether it's friendship, love, or something else, has its own dynamic. It's never one size fits all. There was a pause before Mira spoke again, her voice cautious yet curious. In Vareli, we also have deep personal connections, though our expressions might differ. Tonight, we would like to ask something more personal. It's a request we hope will not offend. David exchanged a glance with Mark, both intrigued. Please go on. We're here to understand each other. After all, Lyra took a deep breath. We wish to understand these personal human connections firsthand. Our culture does not explore intimacy the same way humans do. So, our request is this. Could you show us what it means to connect as humans do? Can you handle both of us at once, to truly teach us? David and Mark looked at each other, taken aback by the directness and depth of the request. David was the first to respond, carefully choosing his words. You're asking about something deeply personal and, in many ways, sacred to many humans. Intimacy is not just physical. It's emotional and requires mutual respect and understanding. Mark nodded, supporting David's point. It's about trust, too. What you're asking is significant, but given the trust we've built, it's something we can explore, within comfortable boundaries for all involved. Mira and Lyra listened intently, their expressions open and earnest. We value the trust between us, Mira said. We seek only to understand, not to overstep. The discussion continued for a while, exploring the concept of consent, boundaries, and the emotional implications of intimacy. David and Mark explained how these interactions are approached with care and sensitivity in human culture. Finally, reaching a mutual understanding and agreement on how to proceed, they decided to move forward with the experience. It would be a night of learning about physical and emotional closeness, guided by clear communication and consent. As they prepared, the mood was one of mutual respect and curiosity. They began with simple human gestures of intimacy, holding hands, gentle touches, and eventually, moving to more affectionate expressions like hugging. Lyra, experiencing a human hug for the first time, remarked, "It's warm, comforting. It's different from how we connect, but there's a beauty to it." Mira, similarly moved, added, "There's a strength in this vulnerability, a shared trust." Throughout the evening, David and Mark remained attentive and communicative, ensuring that the twins felt comfortable and respected. The experience was profound for all involved, deepening their understanding of each other's cultures and emotional landscapes. As the night drew to a close, they all reflected on the experience. "This has been an enlightening evening," David said softly. "It's shown us that despite our differences, at our core, we all seek connection and understanding." Mark agreed, adding, "In each experience, each interaction helps build a bridge between our worlds." Lyra and Mira expressed their gratitude, their respect for human customs deepened by their personal experiences. As they departed, the bond between them had grown stronger, a testament to the power of cultural exchange and the human capacity to connect across the cosmos. David Ellis and Mark Jensen met with Lyra and Mira in a secluded, serene area of the city park, shaded by tall, rustling trees that framed a peaceful view of Zerathon's skyline. The atmosphere was calm yet charged with an unspoken depth following the intimacy of the previous night. Today, they intended to reflect on the experiences they had shared, discussing what it had meant for each of them personally. Last night, Mira began. Choosing her words thoughtfully opened a doorway for us. Not just to human emotions but to something enduring, something we didn't fully comprehend before. Lyra nodded, adding softly, in Varelli, relationships and connections are celebrated. Yet rarely do they involve such layers of personal expression and trust. It's as if our understanding of closeness has expanded. David leaned forward, sensing the weight of what they were sharing. Human connections, especially intimate ones, are about creating a shared understanding, a bond that respects individual boundaries while drawing closer. It sounds like that's something you experienced with us. Mark agreed, his voice reflective. What we shared wasn't just about learning or satisfying curiosity. It was a way of honoring our differences and finding unity in them. I think that's what made it meaningful for all of us. Lyra's gaze shifted to David, her eyes filled with sincerity. We didn't just learn about your culture. We experienced a part of it we didn't expect to touch. It was as if we felt human. David smiled, touched by her words. I think that's the real purpose of cultural exchange. It's not just understanding the other. It's letting their perspective enrich your own. And that's something we all needed. Mira looked thoughtfully at Mark. The way you and David approached the experience showed us that intimacy isn't a single concept. It's layered, flexible, and deeply personal. Mark nodded, looking back at her with equal openness. Yes, and it's different for everyone, shaped by culture, experience, and individual connection. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the words settle. The trees swayed gently, and the distant sound of laughter floated in the air from others enjoying the park. After a while, David broke the silence, his tone warm. So, what's next for you both? Now that you've had this experience, what do you want to explore? Lyra exchanged a glance with Mira, then turned back to him. We want to continue learning, exploring what else might connect our worlds. This has only deepened our curiosity. Mira added, there are more layers to uncover, more ways to connect our species. We would like to keep working with you, expanding what we've started here. David and Mark exchanged a nod, both feeling the significance of their shared journey. We'd like that too, David said, with a smile. We've grown from this experience as much as you have. As they rose to leave the park, David and Mark walked with the twins, feeling a newfound closeness that transcended words. They had bridged a gap between worlds not just by understanding, but by opening themselves to connection, friendship, and something that went beyond either culture. The day had come for Lyra and Mira to return to Varelli. David Ellis and Mark Jensen met the twins at the Zerathon Interstellar Port, where the atmosphere was both bustling and solemn. They stood together, exchanging quiet smiles and lingering glances, the weight of their shared experiences unspoken but palpable. Hard to believe it's already time for you both to leave, David said, his voice laced with genuine sadness. Yes, Lyra replied, her gaze soft. This journey has been transformative, more than we could have imagined. It's difficult to say goodbye. Mark, sensing the emotional undercurrent, added, you've shown us a part of your world that few humans get to experience. And in return, I think we've given you something meaningful too. Mira looked at both men, her voice warm. You've given us understanding, friendship, and a view into the complexity of human connections. These experiences have changed us. David chuckled softly, trying to lighten the mood. It's mutual. I'll never look at a cultural exchange the same way again. You two have raised the bar. Lyra smiled, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. Perhaps we'll return, and next time we'll raise it even higher. Hold you to that, Mark replied, giving her a grin. Maybe by then, we'll have more to teach each other. A silence settled over them as they absorbed the finality of the moment. Lyra and Mira both looked at David and Mark with an intensity that spoke of everything words couldn't capture. "There's something we want to ask," Mira said quietly. "Would you consider visiting Varelli in the future? Our people would benefit greatly from knowing humans as we do now." David exchanged a glance with Mark, a smile forming. "We'd be honored. Visiting Varelli would be an incredible opportunity, and it would give us a chance to understand you on your home soil." Mark added, "Besides, I think we owe you a return visit. It's only fair." The twins' faces brightened, and Lyra reached out, placing a hand on David's arm. "Then consider it a promise. Our world awaits you." Just then, the boarding announcement echoed through the port. The twins turned toward the gate, and David felt an unexpected pang of sadness. "Take care," he said softly, his voice just above a whisper. Mira looked back, her eyes shimmering. "Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark. For everything." Lyra joined in. "You are part of our lives now, a connection we will carry with us wherever we go." As they disappeared into the boarding gate, David and Mark stood in silence, watching until they were no longer in sight. Finally, Mark broke the quiet. "Think we'll actually visit Varelli someday?" he asked, a hint of wonder in his tone. David nodded, his gaze still fixed on the empty space where the twins had stood. "Yeah, I think we will. And I think that'll be the next chapter in this story." They shared a smile, then turned to leave, carrying with them not only memories of their time with the twins, but also a sense of purpose, knowing that their work and their friendship had bridged a distance far greater than the stars.